Boker Tov.
Boker Tov.
Oh,
We begin the portion of Baha'alotcha, the third portion of the book of Numbers. And this parsha begins with the mitzvah of kindling the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. The Torah describes that Aaron should kindle the lights facing the menorah, kindle the 7 lights of this menorah, which is fashioned of one piece of gold, miksha zohav. It's fascinating. The whole mitzvah of kindling the menorah is one which is fascinating. It's one which we clearly identify with, the symbol of the menorah, the holiday of Hanukkah that it represents. But there are several components of the menorah which really, the message of this menorah is incredibly inspiring. Number one, the menorah itself, that the Torah insists it should be a hammered piece of gold. It's not the way a goldsmith would normally fashion something as artistic as this, which is take each part, each component, work on it, fashion it, and then weld everything together. It was one piece of gold hammered out. And it took really, as the sages describe, the commentators of the Torah, that even Moshe Rabbeinu could not fathom how is this possible that you can take one piece of gold and just hammer it out so artistically. The second component of this menorah is how the Torah describes that Aaron should kindle the lights. The term which is used is baha'alotcha, not behadlikcha, which is when you kindle. Like we use the word lahadlik ner Chanukah, lahadlik ner of Shabbat, which is to kindle. It's baha'alotcha, which literally means when you raise up the flames. Rashi, the classic commentator, explains baha'alotcha means that when Aaron would light the candles, would light the lights, the oil lamps, he should stand there with the igniting light until the flame rises on its own. You would think that's obvious. What are you going to do? You're just going to put the flame there and it's not going to go up on its own. You're going to go on to the next one. No, you should stand there until the flame goes up on its own and then move on to the next one. What are the lessons we learn here? Practical lessons for you and me. The menorah represents the Jewish people in many ways. First and foremost, our mission is to be a light unto the nations. Our mission is to bring a light into the world. As it's even described that when King Solomon built the temple, the sanctuary itself, especially the area where the menorah was, the windows were not fashioned the way they usually were fashioned in those days. In those days of windows, the buildings were the walls itself were very thick, and the way the windows were fashioned is that they were narrower on the outside and wider on the inside, so the light comes in, and also for security purposes, the windows were narrower on the outside. Where in this case, it was the opposite. It was narrower on the inside and wider on the outside. to point out that the light of the menorah, the light which was kindled inside the sanctuary by the menorah, the purpose is not to add light into the room. The purpose of this menorah is to bring light to the world. The light of meaning, purpose, truth, inspiration. This is the task of the Jewish people. At the same time, every single person, every single Jew is different. Yet we are one. This is also represented by the menorah. The menorah had 7 branches. The 7 branches represent the 7 attributes, which are discussed in greater depth in Kabbalah. Different emotional attributes. And every person is a combination of these emotional attributes, and everyone is different. Yet, it's one menorah. While we are all different, we are one people. The definition of one people is that when one is in pain, the other one feels it. We are one people. And the purpose of our peoplehood, our being Jewish, is to bring light into the world. That is our raison d'être. Now we have to light the menorah. Who lights the menorah? So it should be Aaron. Ideally, it should be Aaron. That's how it's described. However, according to Jewish law, anyone is able to light the menorah. Technically speaking. What is the lesson here? And why b'ha'alotcha, when you raise up the lights? When it comes to inspiring another person, at what point do we say, we've done it, we've achieved, it's success, let's move on to the next one? It's not enough that we bring our flame to the wick and we see that the wick is already ignited. That's not yet true success. It's lit. It's ignited. No. You have to be there until the wick until this flame can now rise on its own. In other words, the inspiration of another individual is that the fire within that individual is not only ignited, but raises up on its own that can now ignite someone else. The purpose is that every individual should become that kind of leader. It's not enough that we are inspired. We have to be inspired to inspire others. It's not only enough that we bring a smile to another person's face. We should bring another smile to another person's face, that person should smile to bring another smile on someone else's face. It should be contagious. That's the lesson here. The inspiration should be contagious. The lesson should be contagious. The goodness should be contagious. To the point that the entire menorah is lit. And who has that responsibility? The ideal responsibility is Aaron, because it comes from love. But the Talmud says anyone has that responsibility. If Aaron is not available, anyone can do it. Which means everyone innately has that responsibility. So that's the beginning of this week's Parsha, and that's the lesson we take off for today. So let's do it. Let's inspire. Let's bring smiles. Let's bring goodness. And let's bring truth.